Well, hey, gang. We're out on the road again, so we got to kind of make do and film where we can, when we can. I want to bring you today my interview with Rob Koritz from the Dark Star Orchestra. Rob was kind enough to sit down for an interview with me last week. It's taken me a while to get the whole edit done. It was kind of a beast, but totally worth the effort. It was a complete joy to talk to Rob. We had been trying to make this happen for a long time, and I want to say thanks to Rob for being a really good sport, answering all my dumb questions. Um, I, I don't really know what I'm doing in terms of interviewing people. I'm kind of making this whole thing up as I go along. But I kind of want to ask the questions that I would want to hear. And I also have a tendency to ramble. I want to apologize for that at the get-go. Without any more rambling, here's my interview with Rob Koritz from the Dark Star Orchestra. Thank you so much for watching. If you have a chance, please do hit the subscribe button, and we'll talk to you guys real soon. Thanks. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me today. I am here with Rob Koritz from the Dark Star Orchestra. Rob has been drumming for Dark Star since spring of '99. The band started in 1997. Rob joined them 150 shows in, and he has been playing with them since. He's joining us now between tours. Rob, thank you so much for clearing the schedule and taking time to sit down with me. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Good morning.
Good morning. I wanted to ask you questions to make it interesting, but I was doing a little research, and just serendipitously, you've got your Red Rocks poster behind you.
Oh, yeah.
I watched the show just this morning, just before we got on the air, and it is so fantastic. What was that experience like?
That was the first time we were there. We'd been trying for years to get in there, and for whatever reasons, we couldn't, or they wouldn't have us. But, we finally earned our way in, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Had no idea what ticket sales were going to be like. Turned out we sold out that first time we were there. So we're just so excited going in and having so much to look forward to. I was fortunate enough to have my whole family out there. I think you said you were watching it this morning. If you were paying attention, just the smiles on our faces kind of.
Yeah, it cannot be faked. You know?
And then having Keller open and then having Donna playing with us that night. Donna came out to.
Yep.
And she was a part of that original show 40 years to the day earlier. Right. So there was just so much special about that show. So many things that made it. And then luckily we played well. And yeah, I mean, that still will go down as the #1 show I've ever played.
Oh, interesting. Okay. That was another question I had here on my list. That 7878, just my friends and I talk about this a lot, like whether it's the conflict, the Venn diagram overlap of like good quality tapes, a great performance, a great venue, whatever. That show, that's a big one for me.
Yeah, man. That's one that we haven't played it since. I don't know how many, if we ever will again, because it was just, it was special, and it was doing it there. You can't top that. So what's the point of recreating it again down the road,
Right. How maybe we can talk a little bit about how, without revealing too much about your guys' workflow. Sure. or really proprietary IT, like what is the preparation for playing that second set? I mean, the band flows seamlessly between the numbers.
We that's a good question, and I'm happy to talk about it. We all approach it differently because of our individual roles in the band. So like we don't listen to it together. We all listen to it on our own. None of us by any means listen to the whole thing. And that's why we don't listen to it together. Me as a drummer, I might be listening to a show. I listen to the shows that we're going to play in less than an hour. Okay. Partially because I want the improv to still be us, which it will no matter what, but that lends itself even more.
Yeah.
But me as the drummer is listening to the tempos of the songs that night, and maybe where Mickey and Billy were on their drum kits and how they approached it. Was it, I'll use Scarlet Begonias or Mama Tried and Mexicali Blues, the country tunes, where they played in double time or halftime that night.
Right.
Where's the snare drum laying in that song? So we get it historically correct, if you will.
Right. Sure.
But so I'll listen to 30 seconds of one of the country songs, to get that.
Yeah.
a piano player is going to listen to different stuff. Baracco might be listening to what keyboards was he playing on this song. So we all listen independently of each other for the things that we need to make it historically accurate. And then as far as the transitions go, like what you're talking about there, I don't want to sound blasé and I don't want to sound cocky about it, but we're 25 years into it.
Right.
It kind of comes second nature, at this point, knowing how those transitions are going to go, or how they should go, if you will, according to the way the Dead did them. But we also know each other well enough as musicians now to know when that might happen and feel our way through and know, I'll use this one as an example, know when Jeff is going to switch from the China portion of a jam into the Rider portion of that jam. And that's when the drummers double up the time and change. Right. I've played with Jeff long enough now to hear how he's constructing that jam or that solo to know when it's going to go there.
Right.
But we don't always get it right, and that's okay. That's part of improvisation.
There is some magic. So you guys have your fingers in the cosmic goo of whatever the Dead had theirs in. Like I was at the Capitol last December.
Okay.
78 show. It was the night before New Year's. You were doing Terrapin. There were people my parents' age welling up. I was on the floor 10 feet from the stage. I mean, it puts a lump in my throat thinking about it. The hair on my arms is standing up. The climax of Terrapin. It's not like I'm seeing a cover band. It's like I'm seeing Terrapin. I'm seeing like this thing has taken on its own life, and it is fucking remarkable, man. Like what you guys have achieved. Like I don't really have words for it.
I appreciate that. I will say, yeah, I mean, without a doubt, again, not to sound cocky, without a doubt, there's talent on the stage, but we've been, let's be honest, we've been very lucky to get to where we are as well. It's been a combination of talent and luck. When I joined this band in '99, I thought it might be fun for 2 or 3 years and I'd get a good little run out of it. And, now I'm 25 years into it.
Yeah.
But, you taking Terrapin, for example, that whole ending section is, I think, just like you in the audience on stage, every single person, not everybody loves every Grateful Dead song we play. I'm talking about the musicians.
Sure.
There's certain ones that I could play every night, and there's certain ones if I never played them again, that would be okay.
Right.
But I think to a man, Terrapin, and especially that ending section, how can you not like that? So there's even more heart and feeling in that when we do that. And they, and from the drummer's standpoint, they did it very differently over the years. So it's fun to approach it in the different ways. Early on, like when they got to the ba-dum bum ba-dum bum ba-dum bum bum, the drummers didn't play.
That's right. There's a break.
And they just came back in with bum bum bum. And then later on, by the 80s, Mickey's just making noise all the way through that.
Yeah.
So it's fun to play that because it's done differently.
Right. And how you get to the end of the equation, it's different every time. And like Garcia would always say, and this was something like, I don't know if he was, I don't want to say like toying with the interviewer, but like he had this, like, we don't know what's going to happen. It could be any, but like, you kind of do, you know what I mean? Like you're going to start, or Weir's going to start, or you're going to have this Warhorse in the second set, Terrapin's He's Gone is going to end like this. Actually, another magic thing that happened last year, Baracco was sick. I saw you guys in Delaware. He was sick for the night.
In Wilmington.
In Wilmington. The following show was Harrisburg, and you guys did He's Gone, and everybody leaves the stage and Baracco stays out. And I'm like, oh, wow, he must be very exuberant to stay out. Well, go figure. The real version, there's this dueling solo between the drummers and Keith.
And we pick up on that stuff, and that's why that happened that night. Because as we listen, hey, God, did you hear that really cool thing between the drummers and the keys? Yeah, I did. I'm going to stay out here and do that with you.
No way.
So that kind of stuff we do pick up on. Because when Dino and I go listen to drums a lot of the nights, and we always listen to drums, just for ideas, but we might hear it, and hey, that first part of drums that night, Phil and Jerry stayed out.
Yeah.
And so Jeff and Skip may not have listened to drums because they don't listen to that part of the show.
Right.
So we'll tell them, hey, stay out with us at the beginning of drums and do something cool.
Yeah.
And then
I have not seen a bad Dark Star show ever.
they exist. They exist.
I've been seeing you since 2004. I took a long time off. The podcast hooked me back. That was just a fantastic sales approach, by the way. Like I go every chance I get now, and it's because of the podcast. But
thank you.
Yeah, I mean, every time it's different, and like I'm become a fan of the band. I mean, I don't think I'm over my skis and saying like I came to you guys because I love the Dead, but like I love going to see Dark Star, for those moments of, like I was saying at the Cap with the Terrapin. But there's other little things, like if you're up close. I'm a guitar player. I love getting a free lesson basically from Jeff. But like I watched you guys come out. You were doing a '90s show in California last year, and for the Scarlet Fire, you were doing this.
Yeah,
like
check it out, man.
Yeah,
and
go figure. It was
that
super
might
long.
have been because it was a longer version, or it might have been because I looked at the clock and said, "Holy crap, we got a lot of time left, and we're gonna have a lot of filler that we need to do. Keep it going, keep it going." It could be either one of those reasons.
Interesting. That night you guys played Valley Road. I thought I knew everything there was to know about the Grateful Dead, and during COVID, I discovered the Hornsby Valley Roads.
Yeah, man.
And I lost my fucking mind when you guys played it, because it was just like, it's not really a throwaway. I think it's a great song,
Was that in San Luis Obispo?
It was.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. I was on the rail. I took this picture. Hopefully there's not any glare here.
No, I can see it. Great. That's awesome.
Yeah. It was transcendent, man. Seeing you guys to scale, you have managed to shrink the experience into these rooms. You have a $30 ticket, 35, whatever. It's the stories that you hear of like, I saw the Dead at the Onondaga and the tickets were blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? And like, I met some, like, that shit is happening with your band.
I always make the joke, it's Honey, I Shrunk the Tour.
Yeah, I mean, I love those rooms. I love seeing music in those rooms. I think there's something kind of lost when you go to a big arena. I mean, Red Rocks notwithstanding, but it's intimate and it's loud and it's just exactly what you want in a night out. Today's show is brought to you by Black-Throated Mercantile from the mighty high heights of Salida, Colorado. All the way from Dead Lot to your head. Check them out on Instagram or their big cartel. Black-Throated Mercantile hats. Go get you one. Out,
Yeah, it's and that's a lot of, like, that night was fun. Like playing Valley Road, that's a blast for us because in 25 years we've made it, played it 10 times.
Right.
So right. To go back to go and get to do something, and then we played it a couple more times that tour, like during some electives, and then we haven't played it since. It falls by the wayside, but it was a lot of fun. And then one day we'll pop it back in.
Yeah. Did you? So I know that you did the '90 Europe tour.
I did.
Does personal attendance bias weigh into the Dark Star experience at all?
I can't speak for the other guys in the band. For me personally, yeah, it's always a little bit more fun to play a show that I was at.
Yeah, I bet.
There's a little bit different energy channeling through my body because I was actually there, and especially, we haven't done many of those Europe shows, but those would just be a blast for me because that was that 2 weeks was two of the best weeks of my life.
I don't doubt it. I mean, for a lot of people, the Eurail summer or whatever that's the peak of youth. But being able to do that with the Grateful Dead, man, I couldn't even imagine.
Yeah, well, I was on my Eurail summer with three of my friends, and we had scheduled our trip to Europe months and months in advance, and then we find out later on the Dead announces a tour that's going to be literally the last 2 weeks of our 7-week trip.
Oh, fantastic.
And just we'd already been to all those cities before earlier in the trip,
uh-huh.
And now we're going back to them to see the Dead. Holy shit.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. So the whole reason I reached out to you via email and wanted to sit down and talk to you is I came up as a drummer. I started, that was my mom came from a musical family. She tried everything with me, piano, saxophone. Finally at 11, I got a practice pad and music stuck. And I ended up getting, a excellent teacher to study with who had been to Berkeley. This was years later, but the conduit of drumming It's what introduced me to like hip culture, basically. You know, I
Right
played
on.
in bands in my 20s and like all kinds of stuff, post grunge, and got to play New York City and all the things you're supposed to do. And I never made it onto the tour bus, but my formative years as a musician were a drummer, and my very first band was a Dead cover band.
Right on.
And we were terrible.
So
Like
what?
now, many years later, I'm playing guitar and I'm fronting. I get to be Jerry in our band, and it's kind of interesting to think about the formative lessons of drumming and how the core rhythm section of the Grateful Dead is the base layer to the entire experience. And I think that you guys have got it absolutely nailed. And it's how do you get into character if you're doing a 2-drummer night? Do you kind of have to approach it like Mickey? I noticed like your touch is much lighter than Hart's.
Yeah, go ahead and finish if you're not.
No,
Um,
that's I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on with that primer.
do I have to get into a mindset? Yes, I do. But really, that's just because, and I can't speak for Dino. I can only speak for me with the Mickey thing. Really, that's just because his playing evolved so much over the years. I mean, he was such a different drummer throughout the years. And he changed his equipment setup so many different ways throughout the years. So to be honest, the way my equipment is set up that night really is the first thing that dictates my mindset and my playing style.
Sure.
You know,
That makes sense.
You know, by the 80s, he had that big tom, one of his floor toms, up where the smallest one would be, and he's playing 2 and 4 on that,
right?
Which I love. So that changes my approach to everything I'm doing.
Right.
You know, that's from like 87 on. That changes. That's a whole different kind of ball game than the way he was playing in 76.
Yeah.
So my approach is definitely different over that time. Equipment wise, also and not just equipment wise, playing wise, there's tons of stuff in my personal playing style from growing up and being influenced by the people that I was influenced by and the way I would play that I can't bring to Dark Star Orchestra.
Huh.
You know, I'm a huge Stuart Copeland fan, so my normal kit would have splash cymbals all over it.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I can't play that style when I'm with Dark Star, you know, so there are limitations as far as my personal playing style.
Yeah.
But I'm okay with that. I have other avenues to play that way when I'm home.
Yeah.
So yeah, my playing style and my equipment setup changes drastically from night to night.
I could see that having the large tom on the front of the line in the rack would be almost a physical reminder of like, this is how I'm doing it.
Go there.
Yeah, go there first.
You know, and he very rarely played the ride cymbal on his right side back then. You know, there's nights where his cymbal setup changed all the time. So
yeah,
there's a predominant cymbal setup I have, but some nights this crash cymbal to my right in front of me isn't there because of the setup, and that changes the way I play.
Yeah.
But I'm still in the moment of being me, and I'll go for that cymbal and miss it and throw my stick at Rob Eaton because I went bam and there was no cymbal there. So I'm still in the moment being myself.
Right.
You know, the way we always explain it is they give us a vocabulary.
Yeah.
And that vocabulary can even be more finely defined depending on what the era is that we're doing.
Yeah.
But at the end of that, they've just given me the vocabulary. I still have the paintbrushes. They've given me the paints. I still have the paintbrushes. I'm still being me.
Right. That totally makes sense. Gear wise, do you have like a relatively Swiss Army knife kit that you can kind of rely on to do single drummer stuff or meld into the 2-drummer kit?
Yeah, you know, Dino and I both have one kit on the road. We each have one kit on the road, but the kit I have carries 6 toms. The kit he's carrying also has 6 toms. Certain ones will come in each night depending on what we're doing. We're each carrying 3 or 4 snare drums because the different tones work for different time periods.
Sure.
You know, when we're doing the 60s, I'm using a much tighter, smaller, more military marching sound snare drum that has much more sensitive.
Yeah.
As we get into the 80s, I'm using a deeper wood drum that has a little bit more body to it. So, you know, but yeah, so we each carry stuff, and then, you know, the stage manager who's unloading the truck before the shows, you know, when we get to the venue and we're on our way, I'll tell them what we need for that night or what I need, you know, and hey, tonight we're doing the 80s. We need the big 3 in the back, and I need 1, 2, 3, and 5.
And that's it.
And then he brings it all in or sends it all in. And so, yeah, it's one kit, but it's a versatile kit for sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. And miking, it would be impractical, obviously, to use vintage sound reinforcement from the 60s to recreate the Primal Dead sound. Like, you guys pretty much just have the same setup.
Yes and no. Yes, as far as mics and all that kind of stuff goes. But for instance, our front of house board that we use is a big old monstrous ancient Gamble acoustic board, which is exactly what the Dead used. And people don't necessarily realize this, especially laymen out there in fans, but the sound coming out of the PA through a digital board and an analog board is completely different.
Yeah.
So, we carry some really old, fragile equipment as well.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. I didn't notice it, but Sarno put me on to the fact that you guys have the Gamble boards, and he kind of floated the idea that, hey, maybe they might be the same ones that the Dead use. So that answers two questions I had here on my sheet. Actually.
So you talked to Sarno, huh?
Oh yeah. All this shit behind me, like.
I was looking at that speaker there. That looks like one of Tracy's speakers, the one up top, who's one of Sarno's good buddies.
No, I built this whole like side hustle of mine. I built these. This was awesome. Like I thought I was going to start making cabinets to supplement my job, and it started making YouTubes to advertise the cabinet. But it turns out making videos is way more fun. I maybe make 6 a year.
Having Brad on the podcast was a real coup also, for those first 9 or 10 episodes that we did. And he and I go way back. We went to high school together. Our lockers were next to each other in 1984. We go so far back. We lived together over the years. We played in bands together. So he's a real dear friend of mine.
He is incredibly generous of I mean, I could talk about this, and it's a little off topic for the rest of the afternoon, but like
he's incredible. He really is.
Like he has shared stuff that could potentially be like intellectual property of his own, but like, no, here's how you want to do that. And it's very much that same ethos of Deadlot of like, oh, you're out of butane. Here you go. You know what I mean? Like, or whatever. Like we're kind of here doing it together. That's the vibe I get. I don't know if he's trying to cultivate that or if I'm reaching.
He definitely, he wants it. He wants people to be able to do it, if they're looking for that, the best way that they can. And he knows as much as anybody. I mean, he's worked with Trey and O'Teal and Mayer to help them get their sounds right for this stuff. I mean, he's worked with everybody on that. When Trey was getting ready to do fairly well, he spent a lot of time with Brad.
Huh, interesting.
And getting stuff going. Bobby uses Brad's pedals a lot. I mean, he's just, he's out there. He knows what he's talking about, and he loves to share it with people.
So you gig outside of Dark Star?
We all do. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
We all do when we're home. A lot of the guys, and myself included, it's quite often a Dead related project. I'll go out and play with the local Dead band. I'm playing with them next week. One of them, a band Forgotten Space from Dallas, Texas, came through town not too long ago. Their drummer's a really good buddy of mine. I went and double drummed with him. Wow. But when I'm home, going back to what we talked about earlier, excuse me, my first choice would be to be doing not Dead related stuff when I'm home. My buddies, the Brothers Lazaroff, I'll go play with them. There's this cat in town named Sean Kanan who has a thing called the Voodoo Players, and every Wednesday night at the same place, the Broadway Oyster Bar, he does a different artist. And he hires the right people from around town for the job. Last night was Voodoo Fish. Next week, though, or 2 weeks, I guess, I'll be playing percussion for Voodoo Paul Simon, which is just a blast. So if I'm home for a month, I maybe have 2 gigs, one every 10 days or so. But I play a little bit out when I'm home. I don't want to play too much because I want to rest my body.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a kinetic activity, like drumming is, it can be physically punishing.
I have 2 torn rotator cuffs.
Wow.
I deal with them. I've had cortisone shots in both over the years. One is healed, one is not. I've been dealing the last 6 months with an arthritic hip. I just got a cortisone shot for the first time in it yesterday morning, and I think it's going to work. But yeah, it's physically taxing for any of us on the road. And let's be honest, we're not young kids anymore. I'm 55 and I'm the youngest guy in the band, but especially for drummers. And I'm a drummer who is also an avid golfer and has been playing ice hockey my whole life.
Yeah.
It takes a toll on your body.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's the hardest easy job there is, but it has beat the shit out of my body. Drums, hockey, youth sports, golf. It all adds up. It's not
Yeah.
just from drumming, but you said I don't hit as hard as Mickey and I have a lighter touch, which is true. But like when I go for those tom fills and stuff, especially in the 80s, I'm still pounding, and then the big three behind me, I'm pounding. That takes a toll on your shoulders.
Yeah, I didn't even consider that. The drum section of the night would be a totally different touch and feel. I was watching the Samson and Delilah from the Red Rock show, and it's just it's like a wonderful light touch around the kit, which is really. Whereas Mickey would have these like overhead, like almost affected. I want to say, the arm lift from the two.
Yeah, I end up there. I know exactly what you're talking about, and you use Samson as a example, and like that '78 Samson, even with Mickey, it was still a lighter touch than later on. Mine's even lighter than his, but like by the time we get to those '80s and '90s Samsons, just because of the nature of the way he's playing, I will find myself, oh boy, look where my arms are now. I'm coming in,
Yeah.
So as it gets on into the 80s and 90s, I'm playing much harder than I am in the 70s.
Yeah. So we're working on, we spent a good deal of time at practice last night on the bridge section from Wharf Rat, coming out of the 3/4 back to the 4/4.
That's a challenge for us.
To go the 7/8/78 is like that is as much power as you would ever want from the Grateful Dead. It starts quiet and it punches into the vocal bar.
Right. Okay. Full disclosure here, coming out of that and going back in where, and it's the drum fill and the down, 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 down. By the time they're in the 80s and all that, there is no drum fill. Live the life I should. And Jerry just goes, wow, wow.
Yeah.
But in the 70s versions, there's a pause there. And then the drummers fill. Every single one of them is different.
I could see that.
And it might not be on purpose. It might be by accident, and they're counting the different tempos. Sometimes they'll do a 6-beat triplet thing coming back in. Sometimes it's an 8-beat triplet thing coming back in. So full disclosure with Darkstar, little proprietary secret, if you will. The rest of the band just doesn't worry about that. I do what I want to make it. And it's hard. It's very difficult, too, to count that because, like you're talking about, the time change.
Yeah.
So there's that silence there, and I have to count in my head, if I should, 1, 2, 3. And I can start that anywhere I want, and they just wait for BAP on the snare drum. So I'll just do it wherever. BAP. So that's the cue for us, is waiting for Rob to hit that snare drum. Then we'll go wow, wow, because they're different every time, and I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'm going to fuck it up, and so you guys, just to play it safe, wait for me to hit the snare drum and then come in.
It's great. That's great direction. The Red Rocks one, it starts quiet and it almost sounds like they're doing. It's just one of the magic things of like tape versus reality, where it sounds like one guy starts it and the other guy finishes it. The way it's mixed across the
it's probably actually one guy starts it and they're both finishing it. But the way Healy would send the drums across the PA and the stereo image is so cool. It's very different than most bands. Because there's 2 drummers and there's a lot of drums.
Yeah.
So Healy liked to have the stereo image where the toms were in one line. So if you're looking at the stage, it would start with Mickey's highest toms in the right speaker. And by the time it got to the middle, it's got Mickey's lowest toms and Billy's highest toms. And by the time it gets to the left speaker, it's pretty much just Billy's lowest toms.
I mean, that's exactly how it sounds in my headset. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's Healy. That's Healy. And Betty. Betty did the same thing on her mixes.
When I talked to Gans last year, and he made this great point that I never stopped to think about, is listening on tape. Phil might be quiet. Well, he was probably loud in the room, because it's mixed to taste in the room, and they just hit record on the soundboard feed. So
If
it's not, I mean, granted, the multi-track stuff's that's a horse of
like I
another
say, if
color.
it's not a Betty board or a multi-track, that's 100% true. There's recordings where I'm like, boy, they're not playing the cymbals very much tonight. Yes, they are. I just can't hear it.
Yeah. Right.
It's just not there,
Right. Right.
But I know they're still playing the cymbals.
And you, from knowing the material and knowing what and a lifetime of being involved in this, you kind of know to compensate for that for your own performance.
That's a really good question. Yes, but sometimes I kind of like it when I don't hear as many cymbal crashes on that recording. It gives that whole song a little bit of a different feel.
Huh.
And whether that was what they did that night or not, I'd like to give it a little bit of a different feel. So I'm not going to crash on the one every other bar tonight.
Yeah.
Or that normal place where there would always be a crash coming back in. I think I'll leave it out.
Interesting. Huh.
Yeah. A big thing for us, or at least me, again, I can't speak for everybody, is making it different, or else it's not going to be fun.
Right. Well, that goes back to what I was saying a bit ago about like the conduit was the Dead in my going to see and getting turned on to Dark Star. But like, I've become a fan of Dark Star shows. You know what I mean? I love the spontaneity of it. Like, you guys really have that lightning in a bottle thing happening.
It would suck to go out and do it the same way. I could never play in any other cover band for a full-time job. Nobody.
Yeah.
Because it's the same all the time.
Yeah.
And it might only be a 3-minute song. Well, tonight playing in the band might be 6 minutes. Tomorrow night it might be 18.
Yeah.
And there's different stuff to do. And, no matter how meticulous we are with details of getting the structure right and the form right and the tempos right and the arrangements right and the tones right and all of that, no matter how much attention to that we put, 90% of what we're doing up there is still improvised.
Yeah. Right.
The verses and the solo and the choruses aren't necessarily improvised.
Yeah.
But the jams are the jams, man. And the Grateful Dead's 90% jam.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can't fake improvisation.
Yeah, 100%. And you can't fake doing it the right way also, like the way that Jeff and Rob interact. Or a better example is the way that the rhythm section in Dark Star is.
Yeah, now especially with the new bass rig he's got. Oh my God.
Well, it's the sound. I mean, it's the actual sound of the Grateful Dead bass. You know what I mean? Like there's this nostalgia thing, but there is also this kinetic thing happening, and it is.
He's got the tones down especially for the different eras. Part of that comes by changing the axe. When we're doing the 60s, he's using a Gibson. By the time he's in the 80s, he's using a 6-string modulus graphite. And he's got 4 or 5 different basses he chooses from. And those dictate part of the tone as well, of course.
Right. And it also probably informs the playing too, I would think. Just like you're saying about the tom arrangement.
100%. When Jeff is playing early 60s on a Stratocaster versus playing something from 78 on a Travis Bean, he's definitely going to play different because the instrument lends itself to different styles.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. I mean, you guys are professional touring musicians, and it like as the stakes for filling those rooms goes up, so does the skill set and the bag of tricks that you bring to bear for all of the things. Can we talk about Europe? Like, how was it doing Europe with one drummer? Did you guys obviously just alternated nights?
Yeah, so in that respect, it was an odd number of shows, so we had to figure out who was going to play 5 and who was going to play 4, and so a little negotiating went on, and Dino ended up with 5, and I ended up with 4, but I ended up with one that was really important to me because I was going to have some people there.
Oh, good.
So for me personally, I was in Europe. It sounds like I was in Europe for 2 weeks. I played 4 shows. I had a great time.
Yeah, good.
But no, it was a blast for all of us. Hard work. After we were done in London and Paris, I guess it was really hard work because it was 8 shows and 9 nights in 8 different cities in 3 different countries. So that was work.
Yeah.
But because I didn't have to play every night, hey, I'm not playing today and we're in Berlin, so I'm going to go see the city for the day.
Yeah.
So that was great for me. We were in London for a week. I brought my wife and kids for that week.
Nice.
Took them to Harry Potter World. The only drag about it was the Queen died right before we got there.
Oh, right.
So it was cool too, but the city was nuts. So playing those shows was a blast. We'll use Paris as one, and Dino played that night. But playing that show in the same theater they performed it in,
yeah,
just added a whole nother energy to it.
Yeah.
We had a blast. It was amazing how many people from America came over.
Yeah.
You know, some did the whole tour, some just did Italy, some did London and Paris, whatever. But I met people on that tour that came from Amsterdam, Albania, Israel, Turkey.
Wow.
Yeah, I came from Turkey to Italy to see it because we don't have any Dead music in Turkey, and I'm a big Dead fan.
Wow.
You know, so it was literally people from all over the world who came to hear it. So on those nights that I didn't play, usually when we don't play, I might come out front for a song or two, might stand on the side of the stage for a song or two, but primarily I'm backstage.
Uh-huh.
And for those shows that I didn't play on that Europe tour, I'd make a cocktail. I'd go sit right next to Cotter at the front of the house board and just will get off on the crowds. It was so cool.
Yeah, I
mean,
bet.
I sat out there every minute, not watching the band, listening, but just checking out
Yeah.
how many people were there and different cultures, and we're just getting into it, man. It was just fantastic. The drag of the whole thing was, like I said, it was hard work.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of repeats.
Yeah. The sets are pretty. Yeah. It was like Dark Star or other one or playing. You know, like kind of, you know. Yeah. That was sort of the warhorse. Yeah.
The Town Full was every, which I love playing that song, but you know, we would never play 8 or 9 shows that we did over there. 9 shows. We would never do 9 shows and play any song 5 or 6 times during those 9 shows ever.
Right.
So, you know, it was a lot of repetition, but man, you can't beat the experience. It was just incredible. It really was.
Yeah, I mean, seeing the London Do in London, like I couldn't make it work, but like there was a lot of compelling reasons to go and see and experience it. My friend actually saw the London night, and he was blown away. I got the hoodie, you know.
I have one too, and I never get merch, but I have a Europe hoodie. We crushed it in London. I'll be honest.
Really? Oh, that's so good to hear.
That was a great show. First one, so jazzed. We'd been there for 3 days, so we were well rested.
Yeah, good.
That was my out of the 4 that I played. That's probably my favorite one.
Huh. My friend and I go a lot together. We saw the Dead a lot together in high school. And like I was saying before about how it scales, right? The music scales into these smaller rooms. Our experience scales the same way. It's not like we're reliving the past, but like we saw the show at the Capitol in May. And then I was like, why don't we just drive to Jim Thorpe tonight like we used to? And bullshit until 3 a.m. And we had a fucking blast. I mean, it's that great American road experience that you still get to do. You know,
and for us, it's the same thing on the other end. I mean, Jim Thorpe could be our Oakland Coliseum or whatever. I mean, we always bring it at Penn's Peak. I mean, that's one of our favorite rooms. Again, this might sound cocky, but you know, there's plenty of nights we come off stage and go, that wasn't very good. But that never happens at Jim Thorpe. We crush it there.
Yeah, I've had 2 I don't want to bore you with all the one fan's perspective stories, but
no, it's all good.
The May show, it was a single drummer. You played. There was just a joyous vibe. What's your favorite era to play? Do you have? Is it just a job, or like are you like, oh boy, we're doing 76 tonight? Great.
You know, I love them all. I'll say that first. It has changed at various times over the years. But for me personally, and I think it's this way for a lot of the guys in the band, their favorite eras are when they first saw the Dead. For me personally, my first show was in '87, and Mickey is playing like a madman back then. That's what got me into it. You know, huge Tom fills crossing the bar line, and that big Tom over on the left that we were talking about earlier.
Yep.
And his approach, that's a huge part of what dragged me in. Not the only thing, but once I saw them, this drummer, oh my God, he's my hero.
Yeah.
So generally speaking, the later '80s is some of my favorite stuff to play, and that would be my favorite era. And then as time went on and I was in the band, I really got into the one drummer thing. Because I hadn't approached that and done that a lot, you know, and I get the best of both worlds because I play Mickey's parts a lot. And then every other one drummer show, I get to change and go to my jazz chops and play a little bit more Billy style, a little bit more Elvin Jones-ish. So I got the best of both worlds. So I really got into the one drummer stuff for a while. Then when a year or two into Jeff's tenure with us, we started doing a lot more 60s than because we had never done it before. So I really got into the 60s thing because we were starting to do it and I was listening to it closer than I ever have.
Uh-huh.
I said, boy, there's some cool shit in here.
Yeah.
When you can hear it on a good recording. So when you're a kid, you got these scratchy cassettes of the 60s shows and it just didn't sound good. I wasn't into it.
Yeah.
So, it has changed over the years, but I will always come back to the late 80s, even the early 90s, not as one of my favorites to play just because of the style of drumming that Mickey's playing there. It's a little bit more of a percussionist's approach to the drum set than a drummer's approach to the drum set. And I love that.
Yeah. Can I steal your thunder and do the lightning round as best as I can?
Yeah, man. I loved the lightning round. It was never fast. I was telling you earlier that I did a lot of editing in GarageBand. And I learned how to do all that for the podcast. And, a lot of it was just to edit content. Sometimes it was I had guests that would answer a question very slowly. So I'd have to knock out all that space in between.
Yeah. Wait, what were we talking about again?
Yeah, I'm not going to name names. My drumming partner, Stu Allen, a couple others.
Okay.
All good friends of mine. I can do this. I don't think I ever edited a lightning round. They were just not always lightning fast, but I will do my best. Let's do it.
Okay, I could only remember 4 questions, and I should have taken the time to go back and listen. But favorite Dead album?
American Beauty.
I'll buy that. Favorite live Dead album?
Dozing at the Neck. I love it.
Wow. Hey, me too, man. Yeah.
I love that blow away.
Oh yeah. Bid You Goodnight. I worked at a restaurant and it was an open line restaurant and we did in harmony 3 parts closing, not for like a shtick, but like cleaning a restaurant kitchen sucks and you need some way to kind of like make, and we would sing Bid You Goodnight. And I sang it at my wedding. It's great.
I mean, there might be other live albums that I like, and I'm sure there are, but that was the first one that came to mind for sure. Lightning Round.
Yeah. That's great. That's a great answer. I mean, Live Dead, I sort of think is like the kind of blue of psychedelic music.
And that's the one that I heard first, but
yeah, I love those. I think that's a great answer. First show, we talked about that already.
4/11/87, UIC Pavilion.
Did you do a favorite show in the lightning round?
I did not. I can find the lightning round real quick and tell you.
Yeah. Let's do that if you don't mind.
What other ones did you have that you remembered?
Favorite city for a day off?
Wherever there's a really, really good golf course. Okay, let's see. Here we go. You want me to just answer them? Do you want me to just run them down?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me get back over where I can see you. This is funny. Okay. Lightning round. Favorite Dead album. We did it. Favorite non-Dead album. Paul Simon's Concert in the Central Park, 1991.
Steve Gadd on that record?
Steve Gadd and 5 percussionists.
Yeah.
And every time, this is what happens in the lightning round. And every time you listen to that record on a different set of speakers, you'll hear a woodblock part you've never heard or a triangle that's happening way in the back.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Paul Simon fan. Like I said, I'm playing percussion on a Paul Simon gig next week. First job like that I punched a clock. Senior year in high school at an athletic shoe store called the Athlete's Foot. Favorite color, purple. Favorite venue to play, Red Rocks.
Right.
Best city for a day off. If you take golf out of it, I love New Orleans. I love Charleston, South Carolina. But for me, every day off now is all about playing golf. That's all I do.
You bring clubs on the bus?
Yes.
Yeah. And you fly them? You fly the clubs? Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Smart.
It's my sanity keeper on the road.
Yeah, good. You got to have something.
Yeah, as soon as we get, we drive after the show. We wake up in the next city. As soon as we get to the next city, if it's 8 a.m. or 9 a.m., I'm off the bus immediately to the golf course. Favorite color, purple. Favorite venue to play first. First car, a 1978 Ford Thunderbird. The thing was a monster. It was huge. It was my grandfather's. Got it when I turned 16.
That's some American steel.
Yeah. Current car. I drive a 2019 Honda Odyssey minivan.
Yeah.
It carries golf clubs, hockey equipment, drums, and children very well.
Yeah.
And Dino drives the same car as I do. We both drive minivan. We both got young kids, you know. Book I am reading. I'm just about to start for Hanukkah the other night. My mother gave me a book on the history of the St. Louis music scene
Ooh,
that
nice.
I'm really excited to get into. Magazine subscriptions, the Hockey News, Rolling Stone, Modern Drummer, Golf Digest, Sports Illustrated, Golf Magazine. I'm a magazine junkie.
Hmm.
And besides playing, what are you most excited to have back in your life as we come out of the pandemic? Boy, we are dated. So there was my lightning round questions.
I mean, I could go on and on and on and all day with you, man. That's basically exhausted everything that I had written down in my notes to talk about.
It's been a pleasure talking with you. I've really enjoyed it. I enjoy, you know, I don't do a huge lot of in-depth interviews like this. And after doing 40 episodes of a podcast on your side, I enjoy being on the other side. It's nice.
Yeah. I'm a deadhead. I love talking to people.
Yeah, man.
And it's like talking about music and the dead. It's like my two favorite things. So
yeah, this has been great. I appreciate it.
I really, really can't say thanks enough.